I'll keep this short. Truefire sponsored this channel, and at the moment, for Black Friday, they're running their all access at an incredible discounted price of $79 for a full year of access to every single course. Go check it out.
What I've personally enjoyed about the stadium is that it's kind of got these unexpected situations going on. Now, I've got my own personal feelings about whether these are the sort of features that would have ended up selling more units initially, and I feel like including proxy, some sort of capture, something like that might have, in my mind, been a better priority than some of these things. But there's some features in here that I never really expected to use that I kind of wanted to cover, one of which is within the new amp blocks. So that's what we're going to cover in this video, as well as by the end of this video I happen across another way of using one of what I initially kind of thought was a little bit gimmicky to actually meaningfully change the way that we actually dial in presets. And I think this is definitely a first in the kind of modeling space that can actually make quite a meaningful difference. So yeah, hopefully you get something out of this, maybe. Let me know if you've got a favourite feature of the HELIX Stadium, if you've got yours that you weren't really expecting to like. I definitely know some of you guys have been enjoying the touchscreen more than you thought you'd expect. I'm definitely one of those. And David, I think you also tried Hype for the first time yesterday and were really enjoying some of what it does. The manual says that essentially what it does, I'll read exactly what the manual says, that probably makes sense, doesn't it? Stadium Agora amp models were designed as accurately as possible to sound like the original amplifiers they are based on. However, this may not always be optimal for every situation. For example, in cases where you might want to tighten the low end, smooth the high end, or achieve a more modern tone and feel. Depending on the amp and/or amp settings, increasing hype may subtly or dramatically adjust various behind-the-scenes parameters to make the amp sound and feel smoother, fuller, punchier, tighter, and/or more forgiving, but at the expense of accuracy. I think that's a really interesting thing that we should probably talk about at some other stage. I had to single out one feature of the HELIX that I really wasn't really expecting to use at all. But I tried it for the first time in this introduction, and I was kind of like, oh, wow, that's a thing. And it's not touchscreen, it's not new amps, it's not this sort of stuff, you know, showcase or Wi-Fi connectivity. It's just a feature on the new amps, which is... So this is a preset that I dialed in. I think this is what I was using in the start. So I dialed this in back in... Well, I don't really know exactly, but a couple of months ago. The whole point of my preset specifically was that I wanted to show what the amps sounded like, which I really like the sound of them, and the feel, and I think they're a step up for sure. Now, this little guy here, Hype. So for me, one of the key ways that I like to so now our hype switch goes from 0 to 10. Yeah? So this is, I think, one interesting way to cover this. And what I think is so crucial about this is getting away from this idea of it needs to be the most accurate kind of thing. Because so often the response really is like, I don't know, does this actually sound like an amp in the room? Probably not. And oftentimes what I feel like when people are saying, oh, it doesn't sound like an amp in the room, it also means like this dissatisfaction in what that person has experienced, right? So what's interesting is this is like a non-real world parameter. And what is it doing? Sounds to me like it's smoothing. Adding a lot of compression on 10. Also giving it like a kick in the low end. It's kind of doing that sort of Corey Wong thing, right? Where it's like suddenly quite a dark when he uses a compressor. Let's listen to in second position. So I think you could actually use that like as a boost, you know, to take you from your sort of cleaner tones. And I think that is a genuine thing that some folks might find really, really useful. I certainly was very impressed when I sort of used that for the first time. If we go kind of more subtle with it, you could map this to an expression pedal, or you can map it to XY. How would we do that? So, clear controllers, and then put it here. And this might be a way to find your sweet spot. Yeah, to me it sounds like it's smoothing the top end a bit, giving it a bit more bass and giving it a bit more compression. I don't know, let's go with this. So, Doing heavy palm mutey stuff and you're thinking I want it to really chug out, you can really exaggerate some of that stuff there, which is pretty cool. Likewise, if we were using the new PV 5153 and you're finding compared to the old model it wasn't as saggy, so you might find there that you hear like maybe that's the spot around here where another thing, right, if we forget this, clear controllers, is that you could, I think, I've only just really thought of this, do this, learn controller, so that goes to X, distance goes to Y, use this. I mean, I was making a video on one thing, I've actually found another great use for this. Just listen for when it starts to kind of sound less coloured to your ears. And find that natural kind of cab sound that you're looking for. And you know, I probably wouldn't ever have found that particular combination because you can only edit one thing at a time generally. Obviously you could do that with the focus view too, but the difference being that here I can use that rubber band feature sort of test. And listen that way. I don't know, these two really cool features that actually are pretty substantive in terms of like changing the way you tweak your tones.